And it's the big story this hour. The ANC has been dealt another legal blow. It's just lost its case against the uMkhonto weSizwe party in the High Court in Durban. The ANC had hauled the MK party to court, accusing it of violating the Trademark Act by using the name and logo similar to that of the governing party's disbanded uMkhonto weSizwe military wing.
This is the judgment of my brother Chetty. I propose to just read the order. The order reads, the application is dismissed with costs. I hand down judgment.
Of course, it always felt like the stakes were quite high, even leading up to this particular case in the first week of March. Watching the different details as they unfolded was Canny Maphanga, who's part of our team, joining us now at Studio 9 in our Auckland Park property. And I'm catching a breath because it feels like all of this has unfolded very quickly.
Yeah.
But let's just take a step back. What are the implications for this ruling? What has the court said?
Well, the ANC has failed in getting its bid for interdictory relief, which would have stopped the MK from using the name and logo. And of course, that would have had significant implications for the May polls because they've already got posters up, they've already campaigned, they're using this name, they registered under this name. So there's a bit of relief for the MK party because the application has been dismissed with costs. And you know, when you bring an application to a court, the successful party has the right to claim costs.
Right.
And we saw that they did, and the court granted those costs. So that order is dismissed with costs, and we expect that the judgment will follow a bit later today.
All right, because that was my next question, because it happened so quickly. In fact, I think most broadcasters missed it live, because a big part of making sense of this is trying to understand what the reasons were.
The reasons, yes. I think the court, as you could see, the presiding officer who heard the matter, Judge Chetty, wasn't in the court that morning. It was read on behalf of him by his sister in the court. So it's possible that she just read out the order of the judgment and then handed down the judgment to the party, so we can expect to get a copy of that within the next few hours. But if we remember some of those arguments that were made, a lot of what has bitten the ANC in these court cases is the delay in acting on this newly formed party. You may remember in both instances this issue was raised as to why there isn't an explanation why the ANC only chose to act in January.
Right.
When the party was formed at least in June, and we all knew about it in September. So I think that delay in acting on these parties raises this issue of the ulterior purpose, which MK was arguing, stating that the ANC only had interest once that December 16th announcement was made by the former president. Then they started acting on the MK party.
Yeah, and it's also I suppose, as we try to piece together what's happened, it's going to be interesting to hear how the court dealt with the ANC's arguments around MK riding on the coattails of its legacy, questions around who actually owns the trademark. I mean, there's an organization, I think at the top of my head, called Legacy Project,
yes.
right? Which apparently actually ceded its trademark to the ANC.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to kind of, decode what the court's thinking was.
Well, that was actually revealed in a CIPC document recently. I think it was a few days ago that the trademark has since been ceded to the ANC, but that was not evidence before the court in the 1st or the 4th of March, rather, hearing that we saw. That was the first week of March when we actually sat in court. So that evidence wasn't there, and that ownership wasn't there at the time. So the court made a determination on the facts placed before it at that time. But as we stand right now, there is no ownership, at least in that judgment, regarding the claim that they were making. Remember, at the time when they went to the court, they made the claim based on the historical links of uMkhonto weSizwe. They argued that the armed military wing of the ANC carried that name. It's the brainchild of the Communist Party, which is an alliance partner of the ANC. We know the extensive history of uMkhonto weSizwe and the role it played in the liberation struggle. It is against that backdrop that they argued that if the reasonable voter went into the voting booth and saw that logo of the spear and the warrior, that they would automatically think or be deceived into thinking that this was connected in some way to the ANC, and by virtue of that would then lend their vote to that political party. But you saw the MK dismiss those arguments, stating that this is a history that belongs to us all, and further arguing that there may be an ulterior purpose on the part of the ANC as they waited a few months to act on this newly formed political party.
Yeah, part of what the ANC's lawyers were saying is that MK is basically a room inside this house, which is the ANC. That's the argument they made at the very least. So we've got two important judgments without reasons as we stand, which and again, I come back to that because I imagine that's part of what the ANC is going to say in their response once they start reacting. We want to get to the reasons because there's a high chance that we might appeal this.
Well, just clarity, the electoral court said reasons would follow, but it was quite clear listening to the court this morning that this was a judgment. The judge just read out the order, which is not unusual, and handed down the judgment. So we can expect that there is a judgment, which will provide further clarity on how the court reached that determination. On the question of appeal, of course, the ANC has the option of an appeal. You'll start at the court of first instance, which is the High Court itself. However, by the time you launch such a process, we would have reached those May 29 polls and passed them, and the MK probably would have contested with that same name and that logo. But it doesn't stop the ANC from launching that appeal. It's part of their rights. However, we can expect that something like that would take longer than the time we have left, and we know the IEC has already indicated that they've started this mammoth task of printing the ballots. So we are well on the way to the elections with MK Party having survived most of those court challenges. We know there's one left that the Constitutional Court may have to consider. We haven't heard any pronouncement on whether the Section 47 application or the clarification on this legislation will be heard before, or if the Concourt will consider it. But other than that, the MK is registered. They will appear on the ballot with that name and that logo as it stands. And we understand that whether the issue of the candidature goes through or not, the former president as a leader will appear on that ballot. Whether he is a candidate, at this stage, he still is, because there isn't any other order invalidating the electoral court order. But we'll see in the future if that application does sit in the Apex Court. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The train that is the elections timetable is well underway, and I suppose it depends who wants to hop on or off it as it moves. Canny Maphanga, thanks very much indeed. We'll continue making sense of these stories as they continue unfolding. Canny Maphanga, of course, part of our team here at SABC News, getting us a better understanding of this particular order and judgment to follow from the High Court in Durban, essentially allowing MK to continue using its name and that iconic logo of the warrior with the spear.